Hi, everyone. Welcome to Elemental Flows. My name is Christina, and thank you for joining me in today's practice. Today, I have a sequence that is dedicated towards the hips. And so in this practice, we are just going to be focusing on this particular area and just try to work on opening it up. So let's get right into it. We're going to start by lying down on our mats in a Shavasana position. So while we're here, we're just going to take one quick, deep breath all together to initiate this practice. So on an inhale, let's breathe in through the nostrils and exhale to release out through the mouth. Now let's take the knees into the chest and we'll wrap our arms around the legs and tuck the chin into the chest as well. Just give yourself a nice hug here, and you can do a couple of rocks side to side as well. And now we'll release the head back down to the mat. The knees will come up and the legs will be on a 90-degree angle. We're just going to do a couple of twists to begin. So let's take the knees over to the left side, and you can keep the knees in the air, or if you're pretty open or feeling pretty open in your body, you could take the knees down to the ground, or you can use a block and place it underneath your knees. We're at the beginning of this practice, so we're just starting to open up our bodies. So that's why don't focus on going too far here. Just do what feels comfortable for you right now. And let's take the knees back into the center line, and we'll repeat on the other side. So drop the knees now over to the right side. And make your way back up to neutral. And now let's take or extend that right leg out on the mat, and we're going to hug our left knee into the chest. So again, we're just beginning to open up our bodies. So in these first few poses, see what shifts for you in your body. Notice how certain areas feel and try to breathe into those spaces that feel a bit tense. Let's now take that left knee out to the side so that it's in line with the shoulder. And then we're going to lift the sole of the foot towards the ceiling and then reach on the inside of that inner left thigh to grab hold of the outer edge of the foot. So we're in our half happy baby here. So think about pressing the hand into the foot to lower the knee a little bit further down to the ground. And let's release. We now extend that left leg out as we take the right knee into the chest. And now let's bring that right knee out to the side so that it's in line with the shoulder. And then we'll raise the sole of the foot to the sky and reach on the inner right thigh this time to grab hold of the outer edge of the foot. And let's release. We'll bring ourselves up into a seated position on our mat now so that we can go all the way into a plank position. So roll over on your knees. So you could come into a plank. You could also drop the knees down to the mat if you like. We're just going to take a quick vinyasa here. So let's bend at the elbows to lower ourselves down. And then on an inhale, let's slide the chest forward and up to come into a low lunge, or not low lunge, into a cobra or upward facing dog. And then release the chest back down, tuck the toes. We press back up into a downward facing dog. So notice how your body feels once again in this position. Notice where you're experiencing some tightness. And then just try to add some additional movement into those spaces to help open them up. And now come to find stillness in your downward facing dog. Let's now lift that left leg into the sky to come into a three-legged dog. And hold it here for a breath. And now let's bend that left knee to open up that left hip. The shoulders are still square to the top of the mat while we're holding here. And now we'll do some circles with that knee. So go in one direction, either clockwise or counterclockwise. You can pick which one you want to go in first. But just do a few rotations in one direction and then switch the direction and go the other way. Now let's extend that leg once again back into the sky for a three-legged dog. And this time we'll take that knee into the chest as we send it forward so we can drop our left foot down to the mat. As we do so, we also drop that right knee down to the mat. And we'll take a twist from here. So press into the right hand so you can lift that left arm into the sky and turn the chest over to the left. Now let's drop that left hand down on the inside of the left foot. And then we're going to walk that left foot to the outer edge of the mat. So we're in a variation of lizard right now. So while you're here, think about sinking deeper into your hips and sending them forward towards the top of the mat. And you could either stay up on your hands, or you can go down onto your forearms while you're here, or use a block so that you could rest on your forearms on the block. Whichever variation you pick, just keep thinking about sending the hips forward as you maintain a long spine. And you can see I'm adding some movement to my lizard because it feels good for me and my body today. You can do that as well, and you could even add an additional option of tilting the left foot so that it's flared out to the side. And then if you are doing this variation, you also have the option to press into your inner left thigh with the left hand as you turn up towards the ceiling. And if you are taking this variation, just make sure that the knee is in line with the ankle. Good, and let's come back to a neutral lizard. So bring your foot back down if you had it tilted out to the side. You can remain on your forearms here if you like, or continue to use the block. All we're going to do from here is we will take that left arm and bring it towards the back of the mat. And as we do so, we bend into that right knee. And if you can grab hold of your foot, you can do so. And then if you are grabbing hold of the foot, think about pressing that foot into the hand as you once again sink deeper into those hips. Release the foot if you had hold of it. Let's bring that left hand back to meet the mat. And from here, we're going to press into the hands. We'll tuck the toes of the right foot so we can lift the knee off of the mat. And then we'll take and swing that shin around so that it's about parallel to the top of the mat to come into our pigeon pose. So if you like, you can use a block and place it underneath your left hip here to have the additional support. Otherwise, let's just hold it here for a couple of breaths. Think about reaching out through the crown of the head. And now everyone, let's lower ourselves down into a sleeping pigeon pose. Just rest your forehead on your hands. And while we're here, think about the mat holding the entire weight of your body. So once again, notice where there might be some tension and try to breathe into those spaces and allow it to relax. Everyone start making your way up. Come up onto your hands. Once again, we'll tuck the toes of the right foot so we can lift the knee off of the mat, and then we press into the hands so we could send that left leg back into a three-legged dog once again. Hold it here for a breath. Shoulders are squared to the top of the mat. And now we bend into that left knee to open up the hip once again. And once again, let's do a few rotations. So pick which direction you want to go in and do a few rounds going in that direction. And then switch the direction and go the other way. Excellent. Now let's lift that leg once again, extend it back into the sky. And then we once again bend the knee into the chest so we can bring the foot forward, place that foot down on the mat. We also lower that right knee down to the mat. And this time we'll just press up into our low lunge. So we're standing tall here. We're staying tall here, reaching out through the crown of the head. As we once again think about pressing those hips towards the top of the mat. Now let's drop the hands down to the mat. We're going to send the hips now towards the back of the mat as we extend that left leg and flex that left foot. Think about maintaining, think about maintaining a long spine while you're here. And you can have blocks and place it on either side of your hand as well, if that helps. Let's walk the hands forward now. We bend back into that left knee and we tuck the toes of the right foot once again so we can lift that right knee off of the mat. Hold your runner's lunge here for a few breaths. Once again, think about sinking into those hips and allowing them to release. And then let's ground through the feet. Press into the feet as you swing your arms forward and up to come into your high lunge. So once again, see if you could sink a little bit deeper into your hips while you're here. And now let's take the hands down to meet the mat. We extend that left leg so that it's straight. I'm going to take a couple of hops in with my right foot just so I could get both legs straight while I'm here. The toes of the right foot are on a 45-degree angle, so they're facing the top right corner of the mat. And we're here in pyramid. So once again, we're thinking about elongating the spine and bringing the crown of the head closer towards that left foot. You could have blocks here on either side, once again, to help bring the floor a bit closer towards you. And while we're here, we're thinking about our hips being square to the top of the mat. Good, let's bend back into that left knee. I press into my hands once again so I can send that left foot back up to the sky for a three-legged dog. And hold it for a breath. The hips are square here to the top of the mat. And now let's bend into that left knee once again to open up the hips. Continue to breathe. Don't hold in your breath. And let's do a few rotations with that knee once again. So pick one direction and do a few rounds. And then switch direction and go the other way. Let's send that leg back into the sky for a three-legged dog. And then we bend the knee back into the chest so we can place that left foot down on the mat. We once again lower that right knee down onto the mat. And then this time, I'm going to take my left hand and bring it on the inside of my left foot so I can press into the left hand and open up to the right side. So we're thinking about reaching up with our right hand as we sink our hips deeper here. Now let's take that right hand down to meet the mat. We're going to tuck our right toes so we can lift the knee off of the mat. And then this time we turn towards the right side so the hips and chest face towards the right long edge of the mat to come into our Skandasana. So the right leg is extended out to the side. I'm trying to remain lifted here. So my chest is open, my spine is long. I'm reaching out through the crown of the head. And you can use a block and place it underneath your hips if that helps here. Good, and let's turn ourselves over to face the top of the mat once again. And then this time we lower that right knee down to the mat, and then we lift ourselves up. So let's think about windmilling the hands towards the back of the mat. We open up the chest to the right side of the mat as we arch our spine and think about sending those hips forward. You could also use a block here to place underneath your right hand if that helps. And windmill the hands towards the top of the mat. Let's press into the hands once again. We tuck the toes of the right foot to lift the right knee off of the mat. And then let's send that leg back up for a three-legged dog. And now we bring that left foot down to meet the mat. Well done. Now we'll repeat the sequence on the other side. So we begin by taking that right leg into the sky for a three-legged dog. Square the hips here. And now let's bend into that right knee to open up the hips. The shoulders remain square to the top of the mat. And let's do a few rotations going in one direction. And now switch direction and go the other way. Excellent. Let's send that leg back into the sky. And now we bend the knee into the chest, bring that foot forward so we can place it in between the hands. This time we lower the left knee down to meet the mat as we're here in our low lunge. We press into the left hand this time so we open up to the right side. Good, let's bring that right hand down now on the inside of that right foot. And then we walk that right foot over to the long edge of the mat to come into our lizard. So once again, you could take whichever variation you want here. So you could go down onto your forearms or use a block, or you could tilt the foot out to the side. Just make sure that the ankle is in line with that knee if you're doing so. And if you're taking that variation, you can add an additional twist by turning the chest to the right and placing your right hand on that inner right thigh. Let's come back to a neutral lizard position. So drop that right foot back down to meet the mat if you had it tilted. And from here, we're going to reach up and around with our right hand towards the back of the mat. And then we bend into the left knee. You could hold it here if you can't reach your foot. Otherwise, try to grab the foot and press the foot into the hand. Think about sending the hips towards the top of the mat as you're doing this. And we release the foot if you had hold of it. Let's take that right hand back on the inside of that right foot. And we tuck the toes of the left foot this time to lift that left knee off of the mat. We press into the hands so we can swing our shin around so that it's about parallel to the top of the mat to come into our pigeon. So once again, you could use a block here on your right thigh or underneath your right thigh if you want the additional support, but try to remain lifted here and open through the chest and reaching out through the crown of the head. And now on an exhale, everyone walk your hands forward so you could come down into a sleeping pigeon. So rest the forehead on the hands and allow your body to release and relax. Let's slowly begin to bring ourselves back up. We come back up onto our hands. We tuck the toes of the left foot to lift the knee, and then we press into the hands so we could send that leg back up into a three-legged dog. Just going to quickly readjust myself here. The hips are square to the top of the mat, so are the shoulders. And then let's bend into that right knee once again to open up the hip. And let's do some circles going one way. And reverse the direction and go the other way. And don't forget to breathe. And let's extend that leg back up to the sky, square up the hips. And then we bend the knee into the chest once again. As we drop that foot down to meet the mat, we also drop the left knee onto the mat, and then we press up into a high lunge. So open up the chest to the front, gaze is neutral and looking forward as we reach out through the crown of the head. Think about sending the hips forward once again. And now let's take the hands down to meet the mat. We send the hips now towards the back of the mat as we straighten that right leg and flex that right foot. Let's walk the hands forward. And then this time we're going to tuck the toes of the left foot so we can lift that left knee off of the mat. We hold our runner's lunge here for a moment. So think about sending or releasing the hips so that they lower a little bit more. And then we press into the feet so we could swing the arms forward and up to come into our high lunge. See if you can drop the hips a little bit deeper. Good, and now let's bring the hands back down to meet the mat. As we do so, we straighten that right leg. I'm taking a couple of hops in with that left foot. And as I do so, I turn my left foot out on a 45-degree angle. Both legs are straight here, and I'm thinking about elongating my spine and bringing the crown of the head closer to that right foot. Hips are square here, so think about pulling your left hip forward to square up the hips. Let's bend into that right knee once again, press into the hands so we could send that leg back and up for a three-legged dog. And from here, let's bend into that knee. And let's do a few circles in one direction. And now reverse the direction and go the other way. Excellent. Let's send that leg back into the sky for a three-legged dog. And we bend the knee back into the chest so we could place that foot down on the mat. As we do so, we lower that left knee. And this time we take the right hand on the inside of the right foot so we could press into the right hand as we open up to the left side. Think about sending the hips forward. And now let's drop that left hand down to meet the mat. We tuck the toes of the left foot to lift the knee off of the mat. And now we turn ourselves towards the long edge of the mat. As we do so, we straighten out that left leg to the sky or to the side as we flex the foot. And once again, we're thinking about being lifted here. So think about opening up the chest and elongating out through the crown of the head. And let's turn ourselves back to face the top of the mat. And let's lower that knee once again to meet the mat. This time we lift ourselves up as we windmill the hands towards the back of the mat. And we come into this reverse low lunge. And let's come forward, windmill the hands towards the top of the mat. And now we press into the hands, tuck the toes of the left foot to lift the knee, and then send that right leg back up for a three-legged dog. This is your last one of the practice. And then let's gently drop that right foot down to meet the mat. Well done, everyone. Let's go through a vinyasa. So we'll roll ourselves forward into a plank position. You could drop to your knees here if you like. Let's bend at the elbows to lower down on an exhale. Slide the chest forward and up to cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale to release the chest back down. And then we'll press back into a downward facing dog. Notice where you are feeling tight and try to breathe into those spaces and add some movement. And then come to find stillness in your downward facing dog. Now let's look towards the top of the mat so we can walk the feet in towards the hands. We're going to now walk the feet out so that they're about hip-width distance apart. And then we're going to turn the toes out on a 45-degree angle. And then we bend into the knees to lower our hips down to the mat. We're only here for a moment before we send the hips back up to the sky. Turn the toes in, straighten the legs. On an inhale, press into the mat, or you could come up to the shins for a flat back. Exhale to release, and let's sequence through that a couple of times. So we turn the toes out as we bend into the knees to lower ourselves down. Lift up through the crown of the head while you're here. And then send the hips back up to the sky. Straighten the legs, turn the toes in so that they face the top of the mat. Then on an inhale, we come to a flat back. Exhale to release. One more time. Turn the toes out on a 45-degree angle as you bend the knees on an exhale. Think about a long spine while you're here, and then bring the hips back up to the sky. Turn the toes in, straighten the legs. On an inhale, we come up to a flat back. Exhale to release. And now last time, let's turn the toes out. We bend into the knees, and now we sit in our garland for a few breaths. So if you like, you can also place a block underneath your hips while you're here to once again add the additional support, which can help to elongate the spine and reach out through the crown of the head. And while I'm here, I'm thinking about pressing my elbows into my inner thigh so that I could open up the hips a little bit more. Well done. Let's bring our hands back down to the mat. If you had a block, remove it so that you can come into a seated position on your mat. And we're going to lie back in a Shavasana for our last few poses. So come down to the mat whenever you're ready. And then from here, if it feels good for you, you could take some windshield wipers. So just move the knees side to side. And let's come back to a neutral position here. Now let's take the right ankle and place it on our left thigh. And then from here, we're going to lift that left foot off of the mat and then reach through with our hands. So our hands grab our left hamstring. And you could stay here if this is enough for you already. If you want to go a little bit further, let's bend at the elbows to bring the legs a bit closer towards us. And you can even use the right elbow to press on that left inner thigh for a bit more of a stretch. And now from here, we're going to twist to the side. So the legs remain exactly as they are. We're just going to tilt them over to the left side so that they could come either to a block, or you can bring them all the way down so that they meet the mat. Just make sure that your shoulders are still resting on the mat so you don't have your right shoulder popping up to the sky. And if this is too much for you, if you're feeling it's too intense for your hips, you can simply just cross your knees here and take them out to the side as well. Or you can do one of the other variations, such as simply having your knees together here. So find the one that works for you and just hold it there for a few breaths. And let's take the legs back up. We'll repeat on the other side. So take that right ankle off, and this time we take the left ankle and place it on top of that right thigh. And then we lift the right foot off of the mat, reach with the hands to grab hold of your right hamstring. And then you can either stay here, or if you want to go a little bit further, bend into the elbows to bring the legs a bit closer to you. And once again, you can use now the left elbow to press on that inner left thigh. And now let's tilt the legs over to the right side. So bring them over to the right. You can once again use a block or take a different variation with the legs. Just make sure that both shoulders are resting on the mat. and bring yourself back up to neutral. Let's go back to a neutral position with the legs, so the soles of the feet are just resting on the mat. We have our last few poses here, so let's get into a bridge position. So let's take the feet out so that they're about hip width distance apart. Arms are by our sides. And then on an inhale, let's press into the hands and feet so we can lift our hips off of the mat. And if you want to make this a little bit more passive, you can use a block and place it underneath your hip bone here. But otherwise, think about pressing your hips into the sky and see how much height you can get out of them. Now remove the block if you were using one, and let's gently begin to bring our hips all the way back down to meet the mat. Let's take one hug into the chest, bend into the knees. And now release the head back down. And what would be a hip stretch without a happy baby? So let's take the knees out to the side. Make sure that they're aligned with your shoulders. And then we send the soles of the feet into the sky, reach on the inside of our inner thighs, and then grab hold of the outer edges of the feet. And then from here, think about pressing the hands into the feet so that you can bring the knees a bit closer towards the ground. And if it feels good in your body, you can rock side to side while you're here. Excellent. Let's release the feet now down to the mat. We'll take a final breath here. So you can extend the legs out if you like. Since we should feel a little bit more open in the hips, I'm going to take my final resting pose here with my soles of the feet together, knees out to the side. Hands can be wherever you feel comfortable, whether that's out to the side or resting somewhere on your body. And we'll finish this practice today with one deep releasing breath all together. So on an inhale, let's breathe in through the nose. And exhale to release. Well done, everyone. That's it for this sequence. I hope you enjoyed that flow and feel a little bit looser in your hips. Let me know how that was for you. And otherwise, I hope that I get to see you at the next one. Bye for now.